City.
Yeah.
There's an Aldi in Ventura now. You should check it
Yeah.
out.
I
I
checked
just
it out.
I
I didn't like it.
Oh, you didn't like it?
No, I walked in and because like, okay, so my girl, she's all about grocery outlet, you
Yeah,
know,
okay.
and like
Yeah.
grocery outlet can have some really, really, really good shit, and then it
Yeah.
can have some really,
You can
really
have
whack
some
shit.
really bad stuff too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So it's up and down.
the
But when there's
99
good
cent
Yeah.
shit,
store too.
when there's good shit, stock up on it because it'll be
Yeah.
gone. Like it'll be gone.
Yeah.
Um, but the Aldi, I went there. I didn't really. I like
Not really.
honestly. Yeah, I get my meat from Costco.
Yeah, so do I. The thing about Aldi that I'm curious about is because like I grew up in Chicago, and so there's Aldi everywhere out there. But yeah, I'm wondering if it's going to be kind of like Kohl's, where California like westernizes it,
Yeah.
Because when the first time I went to Kohl's in Ventura, I was like, "Where's the laundry detergent?" Because the Kohl's in Illinois has laundry detergent,
Yeah.
and it's like a Target almost. And
Yeah.
I go in and it's just clothes and shoes and handbags, and I'm like, this is ridiculous,
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's going to happen with the Aldi also.
I went in there and it was a lot of like just I don't know, it looked like stuff that didn't really sell. Like shit that just kind of didn't make it off the shelf in other places.
Yeah.
So they brought it in there. And they have their ranch and all the shit that you'd get anywhere else, but I
And I
don't
know people are pissed about the quarter thing. You have to use a quarter
I think
to
the
rent
reason
a
they do
cart.
that is so like homeless
Interesting.
people don't take off with
They'll
carts.
steal the carts. Yeah.
And it kind of prevents that, I guess. But yeah.
What?
We were
Okay,
talking
it's
about
70
how
30
Aldi
now.
we were talking about how
70
Aldi
30
makes you pay a quarter to get a cart.
to rent a cart, and then you get the quarter back. You know.
I just I was willing to sacrifice that 25 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
I got an entire shopping cart out of it, man.
yeah, yeah.
No, I don't know. It looks like we're gonna survive. It looks like
Has
we're
a bargain.
Huh?
So they just said it's 70 30. 70% no.
Good.
That's good, right?
That's
70-30 in which
that's
direction?
quite
70%
no.
no.
70% no. That's that's
That's pretty significant, right?
why is CNN having a special event for this? Like this is
It'll be over in 5 minutes.
yeah. Although there were a lot of people in line. I don't know about Ventura, but there were a lot of people in line.
They dropped
Um,
Thousand
I
Oaks'
know.
name specifically. They were like, we're waiting for some votes, some possible conservative votes to come in from Huntington Beach and Thousand Oaks.
Yeah.
So this is what happens. So there's a couple things. So all the election. So yeah, I don't know if you are recording. Are you recording? Are we now like telling people
Yeah,
what's
we're
up?
recording.
Sure. So okay. So as a former election official, so I can tell you exactly what's happening right now. So all day today, so there's white boxes all throughout the county, in addition to the polls that are open all day today. So I know personally, I went to one drop box today, and there was like 10 people that ran up when I did. So there's that. So definitely, there's still a lot of ballots that have just been turned in today. But so what happens is at 8 o'clock, all of the polls close and all of those ballot boxes, the big white, the cemented ones, they get locked. And so those all have to get picked up. And then so everybody has to drive from their polling place or from that ballot box that they're picking up all the way to Ventura City Hall to the government center.
Wow.
So that's why they're waiting for Thousand Oaks and everything, because they've got to close, anybody in line at 8 o'clock, say they've got a line out the door, they still have to process anybody in line, and then they've got to close up, pack everything up, lock everything up. So the stuff for today, is gonna take a little while. They've gotten more efficient because they've been doing this for the last 3 days, but all of the poll workers have also been doing this for 4 days now, fully. So they are rightfully exhausted.
Well, yeah, and in a world that made sense, we wouldn't even be having this election, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other conversation we could have. The millions of dollars wasted. They should have just spent all this time, money, and campaigning that they did to put up a good Republican to challenge him in 22.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Dude, and it's already looking like the Democrats are going to fuck up in 2022.
Yes, because they're making the same mistake that they're doing here in just assuming that people were going to just vote Democrat. Now they've got lucky that the highest polling option was terrifying to everybody, Democrat or not. So their strategy is, and it's unfortunate because they're going to think that their strategy worked of not putting up a contender, of telling people to not pick a second option.
Yep.
They're going to say, see, look, it worked. Everything turned out fine. But the reality is that it's only because Larry Elder was so egregious that Democrats, or not just Democrats, but independents, nonpartisans, we all came out the woodwork. Yeah, I saw somebody on Instagram post yesterday. She was like, I am a full ass socialist. Please go out and vote no on this. It's not about Newsom. It's bigger than that. And, so.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a fucking
But unfortunately,
communist.
that is how they keep winning is, they're the better option. But that's not going to work in every case, especially when there are some independent, nonpartisan, and conservative Republicans running that are going to look better than these Democrats because they're not going to be corrupt goons.
I just think it's like just hilarious how the Republicans just continue to hide behind like the working class issues. Like you see over and over again, you see John Cox giving interviews and he's like, Gavin Newsom is out of touch. He doesn't understand what regular people in California are like and want. And then here he is. Isn't he like a millionaire?
Yeah. Is that the bear guy?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe
Guy with
so.
the bear and the 8-ton
Yeah.
bin of trash or whatever.
Because he
yeah, I'm sure
because
like he's pro.
he's in touch with us.
Yeah, like he's pro worker.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Sure thing, bud.
And
Yeah,
all
it
the
looks like-
Daniel, you weren't here yet when I was talking about this R.L. Miller, this DNC official, who she's a DNC delegate, so she's a pretty high-level Democrat. She lives here in Ventura County. Her registration hasn't changed since 1993. Okay, and she showed up to vote, and she was tweeting, like standing in line with a photo and like cutesy, like brought my snacks, all that kind of crap. And then she was like, holy, she bleeped it, fuck Ventura County. I had to vote provisional because my name was stricken from the roll. She's like, here, let me send you the tweet. It's unbelievable. She's like, what's going on, Mark Lund? Well, I think we all know what's going on, Mark Lund. I mean, I don't mean, come on. The guy has a Blue Lives Matter flag as his Twitter profile pic.
I can't even.
The modern swastika.
I mean, he's a former chief of California Highway Patrol.
Yeah, he was. I remember, like, he has a private Twitter page and a public Twitter page, but they're both public. Like, he doesn't understand that he has to make it private, and he also needs to, like, not, like, let people follow him from the general public. So he tweets about stuff like the Confederate monuments being torn down.
No.
He tweets about, First Amendment rights and all that shit, and he doesn't understand. It's like if my dad is using Facebook and he doesn't understand why he can't just like type something and it goes to the person he wants to go. It's like he doesn't understand, and it's like it's painful to watch, but it's also funny because it's like you're an elected official and you're posting this in the public space, like
just basically like a mask off public official that's a Nazi.
And then a high level Democrat who lives in the county goes to vote and she's been stricken from the voter record and she's a DNC delegate. Like, what?
That's wild.
So that stuff, what's crazy to me about that is
Daniel,
that,
check out the chat. Heather just dropped a link to the Twitter.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what's crazy about that to me is that I don't even know how that would happen unless I just really, because I was more responsible for the supplies and the voting equipment and everything. I wasn't responsible for any of the actual voter registration information.
Yeah.
But being in that office, like, I don't even know how this would happen, other than just, I don't know, I guess if it came down from higher. I haven't been watching the notifications that have come through. I'm signed up for them though, so I should pay more attention to them. But there has been stuff and updates from the California State Election Commission. So I don't know. I'd have to look at that because I don't even know. Like, we didn't have. There were always issues. Like, I'm not saying that there weren't issues. There was always issues when I volunteered at the polls or when I worked at the county office. There was always issues of people were like, I'm a lifelong voter. Why am I not on this list or whatever? But it's just, I think it's more incompetency than any targeted thing.
Yeah, no. And
so
look.
Yeah, they're not evil
County
geniuses.
County of Ventura, I'm sorry, okay, but the County of Ventura basically runs on incompetence. I'm sorry, every single division runs on incompetence, and we just accept it. It's just the way it is here. So that doesn't surprise me one bit. I wouldn't, It
was there were some things that were definitely really frustrating when you could see that it was a problem and then there was a better way to do it. They're like, no, we're just gonna keep doing it this way because that's how we do it. And I'm like,
but yeah, this is how we've always done it. But my question is, like, is it convenient incompetence? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and we definitely need to improve our voter registration. I know that ours isn't as bad as everywhere else, but that's not to say, I cannot say that there is no corruption, that there isn't anything bad happening. I just don't know even how it would have gone down, because I think it's just like we haven't updated and improved stuff enough. Not just Ventura County, but statewide, on how we do things for voting. I feel like we've taken some huge leaps, right? But then we didn't work in the details in between, right? Like, we got all this, we spent millions of dollars on all this brand new equipment, but then we weren't really effectively able to roll it out in some situations. And now that they're switching the metrics, they like ordered like 3 times as much equipment as they need to service our population. Yeah.
Also, like, with like housing and all that shit in Ventura County. I mean, all these foreign investors like building boxes that cost $2,000 a month. I mean, what are we gonna do about that?
With subpar materials.
That Ventura County is allowing. They're not saying no. You
Yeah.
know, and then
That's
we
a
got
big city. Yeah.
we also got, like, when the pandemic first happened and the shutdowns were supposed to happen, Ventura County went along with all of the family-owned restaurants, that like, oh, we're gonna stay open. Fuck that. So they allowed all
Let
of that
the people
shit.
die.
Like, and they're always like, Ventura County is really not all there when it comes to, like, first of all, it's people, because all they care about is money and getting their pockets fattened by foreign investors mainly. And also when it comes to this virus too, they haven't really been very, like, smart about it either.
That the county CEO makes $500,000 a year.
Probably more than that, counting investment. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you just said, look at how they did with the virus, and that's the person that was running it. Don't you feel like he should have done a better job? Like,
well, and the clerk recorder, Mark Lund, makes as much as our Congress people. He makes like $175,000 a year to be a county clerk recorder, whereas like our Congress people are making federal legislation and are in DC at least half the year. Like, I still don't agree that they work enough, but I guarantee you that Mark Lund was not there that often.
There's just not nearly
Not
enough.
enough to earn that much money.
There's just
What?
not nearly
Are
enough
you-
politicians that actually come from legitimate working class backgrounds.
And
Yeah.
that's intentional, and that's intentional and on purpose.
Institutionalized.
Yeah. Well, no, and so Taj, what you were saying, it's absolutely all about money, and I know that firsthand because something that's crazy is Ventura County is actually one of the lowest paid counties in the state for government workers, and there are times where there are positions open for full-time permanent staff, which means you get benefits and holidays and paid sick leave and everything like that.
Yeah.
And instead, they'll hire you intermittent or temporary. So number one, you're easier to fire. Number two, they don't have to pay you any benefits. And so they will string people along like that and extend them and extend them and extend them, and also hire people at the lowest possible level. And all of that, even though, and they put out this image that the county doesn't have the money. It has the money. It's doing it on purpose. And there's a couple people specifically making these decisions to make sure that it stays this way so that they stay under a certain budget so that they can get reelected. Like, and they do not give a shit about the workers and the employees, and they will perpetually hire you as temporary, intermittent, extra help, and at the lowest that you'll accept. Like, they're hiring people with a bachelor's degree. When I first got there, they were hiring people with a bachelor's degree at $15 an hour or less. It was actually, I think it was like
that's still
75.
happening.
That's wild.
Huh?
That's still happening.
Yeah. No, well, actually, no, it's not. Because they know and everything that's going on. So that was in March. They were hiring people like 1475. And then it jumped up for the November election when they hired, because they had to pull people out of, number one, off of unemployment and out of their homes to work in public in a pandemic. And so they upped it to $17 an hour. Right now, they're paying those same people $21 an hour. But they told me when I was there several years ago that they couldn't afford to pay me as a supervisor more than they were paying me, which was not $21 an hour at all. And
how much is it to pay rent in Ventura County? $38 a
We're gonna have this discussion.
$38 an hour.
Absolutely.
$38 an hour for a 2-bedroom apartment. And they're paying fucking $21 an hour for a temporary job.
And that is a $6-7 increase from just 2 years ago. And it's only because of the pandemic. If the pandemic was not terrifying people to not come out, because it's not just going to get a job. And when you go to work in the elections office, you're working with a lot of people, and just because it's go time. And then you're also volunteering to work out with the general public. So you are willingly, repeatedly, and on a massive scale exposing yourself. So they had to. That's the only reason. If we were not in a pandemic right now, I guarantee you they would still be hiring people at $15 an hour.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And the thing, sorry. Go ahead.
I guess I just had a quick thought, and the reason that we know that that's true, Daniel, is because we keep on seeing these employers. They're like, nobody wants to work. All this bullshit that's being spread by the mainstream media.
Yeah.
And so now they've actually kind of accepted. They're like, okay, people are not going to work for poverty wages, so we're going to move on from adults. We're going to go and target teenagers. So I've been seeing signs springing up around the country. They're like, hey, this will be summer jobs, so and so. So that's basically what employers are resorting to now.
Did you see, not just reporters or not just employers though, did you see that there was an editorial in the Camarillo Acorn maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was,
I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I could not believe what I read. It was like, hey, teenager sitting on your lazy ass. I mean, it didn't swear, but it was like sitting on your lazy ass, watching Netflix, playing video games. I have a much more productive idea for you. We've got a lot of local businesses that need burgers flung and dishes washed. So we know that, another hour of Netflix sounds real tempting and all, but maybe you should get off your lazy ass and get a job. I mean, like, I was so disgusted with this thing.
Yeah.
I
read that thing.
Because I was insulted, because I have a 17-year-old, and I am like, do you people even know how fucking stressful it is to be a fucking teenager right now in the middle of a fucking pandemic when you're trying to get into fucking college and compete, especially here in Camarillo. where everybody's fucking competing against each other to get higher fucking grades. And like, you know, everybody looks down on each other for like the stupidest bullshit. And you're going to guilt these kids for not wanting to take a shitty job and maybe like get infected with a deadly virus and kill a family member. Like, seriously?
Yeah.
That's the kind of bullshit that Acorn is. I mean, I'm not surprised because the Acorn is clearly, you know, a very partisan and right leaning publication. But like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, and even the quote unquote.
To your point.
Capitalism knows no depravity.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even the quote unquote like left leaning media, every single article that you read is put in the framework of the boss. It's put in the framework of the business.
Oh, feel sorry for the business, just like the county. The county did this post recently. Oh, Ventura County, you know, our county workers are really suffering. They're having to drive their own kids to school because not enough people are going to drive the buses for the school buses. Please apply for our shitty part-time school bus driver job so the county employees don't have to drive, you know, their own children to school. Like,
I retweeted that. Yeah.
Everyone in Camarillo, every single parent in Camarillo has to drive their own kid to school. There's like 2 school buses that service the kids that live the furthest away from town or kids with special needs. Everybody else has to drive their kids. Why are county employees so special? So the Hill and Huffington Post just called no of the winner.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there's 5 million votes turned in at least.
Yeah.
42.1% of the 2018 turnout. Anyway, what is scary though is that if it was a yes, Larry Elder's at 40% to the Paffrath with 12, and that is because of the failed Democratic strategy where they told people vote no and leave number 2 blank because they don't understand how ranked choice voting works.
Well, they tricked me on that, and I actually feel like I'm somebody that understands politics, and I completely fucked that up.
Well, no, the only thing I want to say, and I did that. I voted no, and I did not vote on the second choice. And here's why. The only reason why is because I assumed that if Larry Elder takes, or maybe the California Republican Party takes it to litigation, I don't know if they would try to use that as something like, oh, look at no one, but look at all these people that still voted for a second choice. Why would they vote for a second choice if they wanted to vote no? You know, like I could see all kinds of stupid bullshit arguments being made. Yeah. Not saying that, you know, so I just did.
So, a couple things though. That's actually absolutely impossible. Like it would be harder for them to do that than the stunts that they're pulling in Arizona, which are still going on, by the way. The recount is still going on in Arizona. So what happens is it's just a successive choice order. And we actually need this process. Like it's weird and it's scary. And the Democrats failed rolling out any type of education about this because other than the people who voted in the recall for Gray Davis, like this is technically this generation in this time period's first introduction, Californians anyway, first introduction into ranked choice voting, to where whatever happens on the first question, that either calls the race or you move on to the next question. And that doesn't nullify the first one. It's just, so if one is a yes or no and the yes wins, then it moves on. If 2 so right now it was people, but say if 2 were a yes or no and no won, then the contest would stop. But if it was yes, then it would go on to the third question. And so that's how it happens. And so what's actually really important about that is that that's how we can get rid of the spoiler and the, oh, you're vote splitting, or, you know, and I actually had this conversation with a supporter the other day who 100% supports me. She's a volunteer on my campaign, you know, very much understands me being a nonpartisan and that I'm going to have to convince people to go against the party to vote for me. And I told her that I wrote in Bernie for 2016 specifically. We were talking about that one. And she said, well, if you voted for Bernie, or if you wrote in Bernie, and you didn't vote for Hillary, then that was a vote for Trump. And I said, absolutely not. I will push back on that 100% for a couple reasons because of where we live in California. But even for states where they can make that argument, because of it's really only the swing states where that is a valid, even partially valid argument. If it's a blue state, it's going to go blue. If it's a red state, it's going to go red. That's why we need to readdress the electoral college issue. But I said, you can't believe that and then still, want to support me and try and get people to come over and do what I'm going to do. But if that is really an argument, then what we need to do is ranked choice voting, and that's how you get rid of that. Because if, you vote for a third party candidate in round 1, but you vote for the Democrat in round 2, and it goes to round 2, then your vote still, right? It narrows down and it shuffles everybody's votes into one. Jordan is a hungry boy right now.
What was their strategy?
Their strategy was vote no, and as a show of solidarity to Newsom, leave it blank. And that's also why they didn't put up a second candidate, because then they would have had to promote for 2 people. They would have had to simultaneously say vote no and save Gavin Newsom, but also, and what this is fine though, they should have said, but if you want to vote no and you still think California needs a better option, here is one. Like, that would have been fine, because they still, all of those people still would have voted no.
Voted Democrat,
Right. It's a both and so it was just a failed strategy. It's the same thing that the Dems are just coasting on. People are just gonna continue to vote for us. And like I said, they only got lucky this time because Larry Elder was so bad. I mean, he literally came out and said that slave owners should get reparations for the loss of their property.
Yeah, we talked about that before you jumped on. That's fucking insane. I watched that first.
That is the only reason the Democrat strategy worked this time, is because the opposition was actually worse than Trump, I would say.
He helped them. Yeah, he helped them. And I'm looking for the link to that.
That's what they're relying on, Dan.
And it's a failed strategy.
That website I was telling you guys that they discovered last night linked to him that says he's claiming fraud. I mean, he's like...
immediately.
They're going to claim fraud already.
Yeah, that's what I woke up to this morning, and that's why I knew he wasn't going to win. I was like,
he's going to claim fraud. It doesn't go in their direction.
Larry Elder campaign pushes unfounded fraud claims.
So that happened here in this county last election too. Rhonda Baldwin Kennedy filed lawsuits against Brownlee for voter fraud. And now I'm challenging Brownlee, so I definitely want her, unelected. But the claims are completely baseless and unfounded. And for being a lawyer, and I am not a lawyer, for being a lawyer, just her claim of even what she was trying to file for was just baseless and ignorant on its face. And she tried to say that vote by mail voters were given special treatment over in-person voters because you could turn your ballot in all the way up to 11:59 p.m. on election day, which is technically what the law says. That's the extension that Newsom put out. They just were thinking of close of business. The end of the day. They were not thinking about 8 p.m. polls close. Here's the problems with that, though. One, the post office closes at 5 p.m. So in-person voters actually had 3 extra hours over the vote by mail people, number one. Number two, Julia Brownlee didn't write that law. Gavin Newsom did. It was an executive order put out during the pandemic to mandate it all be vote by mail. So just first 2 right there. I'm not a lawyer, and I debunked her baseless ass lawsuit in less than 30 seconds. So it never has any validity to it. Sorry, Taj, go ahead. You want to say something?
What? Oh no, I was listening.
Oh, sorry.
Because I was looking at the link, but no, I was listening to what you were saying. Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking about that earlier too. That's going to be our new norm. Is every time a Republican loses, they're just going to call fraud, just period. Which is so funny because we're the snowflakes, right? When we try and point shit out and we call out stuff. but they literally can't handle losing to the point where they have to blame it on somebody cheated, somebody else did something wrong. I can't have messed up. I can't have not been elected. I'm the greatest.
Hey, I have a
I think
question for
it's so
you
much
guys.
projection with them.
Heather, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying. I was just capping off his comment about how they say we're the snowflakes. There's just projection. It's all
Yeah.
projection. If there's ever fraud, I wouldn't be surprised if it was being done by the Republicans. Just like the snowflakes
Actually,
are the Republicans, and
almost
the
almost every time there's been fraud that has actually been caught, it's been minimal, number one, not ever enough to turn an election, but every time it's been a Republican.
Republicans.
Every time. So, yes, you're absolutely correct.
So I was listening to a debate the other day on YouTube, and there were a few people from Britain on there, and they basically made an excellent point. And they said, look, the United States is never really going to get anywhere in terms of advancing interests of working class people and the poor if it's just the Democrats and the Republicans that are deciding everybody's future. We need a
Yeah.
Labor Party like what they have in
Yes.
the UK. Like,
Yeah.
imagine how amazing that would be in the US if we actually had an entire party that was just dedicated to the interest of the working class.
That'd be
Yeah.
So there might actually be one coming.
Good.
And
I don't know if
we need
anybody
we need
has
more
heard.
parties.
Yes, I don't know if anybody's heard of the Working Families Party.
oh yeah,
So right now they're just a political entity. They train candidates, they endorse candidates, they put on movements and put on marches and protests. But I think, and I'm not making a public announcement for them or anything, but I think that they are working towards, or at least considering, making themselves an official political party. I don't know. Nothing's been launched yet. I've just been on a couple calls where some of the stuff seems like that's the direction that they're heading in, instead of just, grassroots activism and local stuff, which they are still absolutely going to keep doing. That's a huge conversation I want to have with everybody. That it's voting and activism. Like, we need both. It's not either or. It's a both and. And so I think that they're going to be hopefully throwing their hat in the ring, as because it's literally the Working Families Party. So it would be our American, the closest we've ever seen of the equivalent of the
Right.
labor.
And so long as Republicans and Democrats are tied in with corporations so heavily, they're never going to be able to completely divest from capital. So
yeah.
that working class families idea is excellent, and I love that, and I want to learn more about it.
Yeah, I'd
Well,
love
I
to talk
think
to
for
you.
that, and I think for them, but I think for them to gain any kind of like power or place,
Legitimacy.
like a seat at the table is gonna I mean, I think a lot is gonna have to happen for that to happen. Like, for example, you know, campaign finance reform. Like,
Yeah.
campaign finance reform is going to happen, even on the most local level. Like, I've been looking at like our housing. Taj mentioned the investors, and it's like it's so frustrating to see like our local cities, petitioning the governor to veto SB 9 and SB 10, which passed. And I mean, the state legislature was elected by the people, so that would be vetoing the voice of the people, kind of, in a way, if you believe the legislature, voted the way that we wanted to. But it's like, I just, all of that would be fixed if you could fix campaign finance. The cities would not be stopping affordable housing if you weren't allowing investors to contribute to campaigns.
Yeah, money is not fucking speech.
I think especially foreign investors, like investors from overseas, that it's like, who the fuck are these people? But somehow they're buying up property in California by the thousands, building big ass square boxes that people can live in.
Well, I found out in the United States,
driving up the rent in other areas.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I think that's the biggest concern. It's not so much like building But think about if they would have built warehouses or retail places or they just built like a bunch of places instead of all of these houses that they built, but they actually built warehouses. Think about how many jobs there would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just feel like even on the local level with issues like that, and then like the national level with like the party system,
Yeah.
and only having two parties, the only way you're going to get like a third party, like the Working Families Party, to have any kind of like seat at the table is if we have like a total paradigm shift. You know, it can't just like you're going to have to reform elections so that the candidate with the most money, who's always going to be someone with a corporate interest, you know,
Mm-hmm.
always wins.
Right.
You
And not
know,
only that, I think we have to completely transform the political consciousness of the American people. Like, we
yeah,
still just legitimately think of everything as red and blue.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
so many people that live within our country don't understand the variations and distinctions that exist within the different schools of thought within politics.
I think
yeah,
Daniel knows. Like, see, Daniel knows this too. I'm sure you know. It's hard for somebody who
Of
doesn't
course,
come
the
from
system's
a
set up
lot.
against you.
Yeah,
yeah,
but it's also hard for somebody who doesn't come from like a fucking millions and millions of dollars
Yeah.
to
yeah,
start running a campaign and become somebody that people pay attention to because they don't have the money to back them like that. So I'm not saying like you definitely are gonna go somewhere, but I'm just saying like it's hard for people like that. Like Bernie Sanders, as much as we all love Bernie Sanders, but you know his background. I mean, he worked, he definitely worked, but he also came from a good, semi-neutral home. And so the people that are at the very, very, very bottom of the totem pole don't really have a voice because they can't really get to that point where they have all
Right.
this financial backing that gets them to that place
yeah,
to be able to run for Congress or all of that. So it's like that's why you see so many rich people. I want to say rich people, but
Yeah, and
people that
it's
are
even
You're right.
extremely
You're
wealthy
right.
become these political figures because they have the money backing them already.
right. And I
Yeah.
would add something on top of that too, Taj. I think you make a really good point there. Is there's even an extra layer set up against progressives in this country because you get criticism from fellow Democrats and even people that would be on the quote unquote left if you stick to a grassroots movement because they'll say that you're just trying to pass like a purity test. Like, oh, they're like, oh, you're not really serious about winning if you're not going to take corporate donations. And so there is a
right,
degree of pressure there, which
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
is bullshit,
yeah.
frankly.
I
I've
yeah.
even from people in the DSA or not from people in the DSA, people who are DSA members or consider themselves. I'm not talking about like higher ups or anything, but like voters and constituents and people that I hang out with. I get daily pressure to not necessarily take corporate money, but to run as a Democrat, to become part of the system. And even in and I'm very thankful. I got the endorsement from Ventura County DSA, but it's like burned in my brain that in the interview for the endorsement process, there was an older couple from the East Coast who had supported a left-leaning candidate, and I don't even think they ran independent, but I think they just challenged the incumbent Dem and lost. And so they were like, so that happened like a decade ago, so we're not going to support you now. And I was just like, what? Because you lost like once, like 10 years ago. So it's even people who they're members of DSA. So even people who want something different still have trouble believing it's possible. And it's
yeah,
because we've been shown for so long that it's not. And I mean, it doesn't help that these people keep making terrible decisions. Like, I don't know if y'all have heard about Nina Turner joining TYT, but I just can't.
Oh my God. No, no.
Yes, Nina Turner joined the McCarthy Smearin TYT
wow,
Do you
sellouts.
know who Shoe on Head is?
Yeah, I don't like her.
I don't like
I
her.
haven't followed her
I
in a long
don't like
time.
her anymore either. I used to, but now I think she's really dumb. She
Yeah,
Did you hear about the populist right group that she joined in New York?
no.
There was this like right wing populist group um, that asked her to be like a spokesperson for them, and she took it, presumably just because the word populist is in it. And then as soon as she found out that they were right wing, she left right away. But I'm like, how do you not see that beforehand?
Right. Or
Yeah.
like pay attention to what you're
Like,
joining.
yeah, pay
There's
attention
a
to what
lot
you're
of
getting involved in.
there's a lot of right wing people though that like, they'll be like, oh yeah, we're for the people, we're for the working class, like
Mhm.
we're that, but
All of Ventura County.
yeah, but they're
Yeah, and
not.
there's also a
Not.
lot of people that are just anti-democrat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I mean,
I mean, I don't blame them.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm anti both at this
Yeah.
point. Like in the
Yeah.
Right?
world.
Nonpartisan.
One thing that I do think is really cool though is I mean, I don't want to give it all to Biden because it's not Biden completely, but I feel like he had Bernie in his ear with a lot of the stuff that he's trying to pass right now and push with the 3.5 spending bill.
Oh, that's all. The reconciliation bill is all Bernie. So yeah, absolutely.
So I really think that's cool. I think that's going to help a lot of people out, and especially the childcare thing. I really like that because there's going to be like that's going to put so many kids through good colleges and get them into like a life that they, you know what I mean? And it's like right now the way things are set up, it's like if we have kids, we have to like pinch every single fucking penny that we make.
Yeah, I frequently make up the point that conservatives they like to leave out the fact that wealth is generational. So there
Yeah.
is, so there.
Oh.
Exactly. I was just seeing somebody on TikTok today over here, like, see what poor and middle class people don't understand is that we don't work for a salary. We don't work for money. We work for assets. Like, bro, you were born into assets. Stop acting like you worked for assets. You did not work for those assets. You were born into those.
And what do you want me to feel sorry for you? You're working for assets? I'm working to survive. Get out of my face.
Assets are just material items that just have like.
Now, what he was referring to was like housing, and so what he meant was like I'm working for assets as far as housing and stuff like that. Which like 90% of people that say that are usually born into those things. So let's say grandpa owned like 5 houses, right? He passes away, passes on to mom. Mom owns 5 houses now because of grandpa. Mom passes away. Son inherits 5 houses, and he gets to rent all those out for whatever, 5,000, 6,000 a month now, and the rent's gone up, so he's inheriting all that money, and he's inheriting those assets.
Yep, most people who were rich were born rich.
That's generational wealth, in a nutshell.
Well, actually, I just read an article recently. Not recently, actually, a while ago. I don't know why I said recently about how you like are driving around and you're like, how can people like living here like afford these $1 million houses? Like,
yeah, it's like
right
2008 all over again.
Yeah,
they
like right up the hill from where we live in the Pinnacle, those houses are $3.54 million, and I'm like, we know a lot of people that live there through tennis because my kids play tennis, and I'm like, how can Christy's parents who don't work afford their $3 million home up there? And it's like, and I read an article a long time ago that said a lot of it is either hidden debt, obviously, but more than 60% of people have hidden wealth, where like they inherited the home, or they inherited, like Taj, you just said, they inherited 5 houses from this person and 5 from that, and they rent them all out, and they've got this massive like income from rental properties. And it's all inherited generational wealth, really, in the end, and it's all hidden too, obviously, because who goes around and broadcasts, like how they're able to own this $3 million home or whatever, and it's just, it's crazy to me because I'm like, how can like these people like afford to do some of these things? Like they have 4 kids, and they're going to like Dodger games every weekend. How can they even afford that? Like, she's a Instacart driver. Like, what? But it's hidden debt or hidden wealth,
It's generational. That's how, and that's how most billionaires become billionaires. And that's the secret that Republicans, even like people that are under the Republican right wing, don't understand, is that it doesn't happen because they worked their ass off and pulled up their bootstraps and went to work every day. That's not how it happened. They became billionaires because they inherited a fortune already before. They inherited millions.
Or they
Then
exploited a fuckload of people.
And that's how it happens.
Exactly. All right, we'll leave it at there, guys, because it's 9.
Yeah.
All right.
Can I just say one sentence?
Yes.
I cannot fucking believe that we taxpayers spent over $200 fucking million and all that fucking effort and all that time for an election that wasn't called in 41 fucking minutes.
Waste of money.
And
We
there's
could have
still
all gotten another stimulus check.
right, and there's still hopefully some 20 million ballots to count, because right now there's only like 10 million in, I think. What was the last I saw? Let me see. Before we let's give the final readout before we call it.
When's
All
the final recall?
Right now, it's definitely 67.9% no, 7.7 million people have cast their ballots.
Yep.
Fucking
So there's-
$200 million.
When they
And,
could have
and
just
I saw people saying it's worth it to prove a point. What fucking point?
There was
That he did a
none.
good
They
job
just
in
didn't
the
want to wear a
pandemic?
mask.
they won't
Yeah.
raise tax, they won't increase our education, they won't give us health care, but they'll waste $200 million to prove a damn point.
That was stupid.
Yeah, they
That
just
was-
don't want to wear a mask, and they want to take away a woman's right to have an abortion.
Yep.
But wearing a mask is violating their bodily right, but not denying
My
a
body,
woman
my choice.
unless you're a woman.
I just sorry, I just had to. It's really annoying because that's not fiscally conservative.
Right. That's constantly what I've been pointing out is the contradiction and the hypocrisy on both sides. I'm pro-life, but I'm pro-death penalty. I'm pro-life, but I'll keep sending your ass to war until you die. Like, I'm pro-life, but I don't give a shit about if we feed you. If you need a school lunch, we're gonna call that spoiling you. Like, you're not pro-life, you're just an asshole.
Yeah.
So I received a text from a family member. I'm not going to say who they are, but they're on the right, and it says, "Cool. More mask restrictions, more homeless, more illegal immigration, more paid government handouts, more unfixed roads and highways, more people and corporations fleeing the state, and more taxes. Sounds good."
That sounds like something my girlfriend's dad would say.
What did they think
would
Larry
respond,
Elder was going to do about any of that?
You
Larry
really
Elder
think
doesn't
about
believe in
any
a
of that?
minimum wage. Larry Elder doesn't believe in civil rights, human rights,
Yeah, but
women's rights.
all
Like,
those people don't
how
care
is he
about
gonna?
that.
How is Larry Elder gonna fix any of that?
What I don't understand is how so many like Republicans are always like, oh yeah, the Democrats keep people poor and keep people homeless because we have homelessness in our state, but they don't even understand that half of the homeless people, more than half that we have, aren't even from California. If you
There's
ask
that.
them, they're from
There's
other
that,
states.
and then there's
They're
it's
from
the
Texas,
Republicans.
Louisiana, Miami, or Florida. You know what I mean? They're from other states. They're not even from California.
We also
or-
have 40 million people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And like it's always the conservative Republicans that want to cut the welfare programs, that want to cut the mental health programs, that want to cut the housing programs. So you are directly responsible for the homelessness that you bitch about and blame on the Democrats.
Mhm.
Like, and I'm not letting the Democrats off the hook, because they'll be the first one to step over a homeless person and tell them to get a job. They're worthless.
Oh,
Yeah.
fuck yeah.
But for a Republican to say, oh, keeping this Democrat is why we're going to continue to have homelessness is just so egregious. And it just shows how completely misguided and misunderstood, or how what a misunderstanding such a large portion of our population has of how things work.
Just have no concept
Just
of
our reality.
institutionalized issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. 41 minutes.
Wow.
41 minutes, $200 million.
Like,
All
Like
that for a mask?
Obama was not even called that fast, and Obama was like lightning speed. I don't know if you guys remember when Obama was elected the first. Like everybody knew he was gonna win. Come on, like it was like everybody knew, and he
Except
was
for Hillary.
called probably in like an hour. Yeah, he was probably called in like an hour and a half. I want to say at 41 minutes. I think
We're
the
at
only election I know that was called quicker than that was my own. Where I lost.
Wow.
Hey, you want to
Ah.
You know.
All right, I'm gonna let you guys go.
You're a
All
good
right.
sport, Heather.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining. I had a great time, guys.
All right, appreciate you all. Have a great night, everybody.
All right, likewise. Peace out.